Chosen one. Every assumption you held regarding your circumstances is on the verge of being completely inverted. The recent event in the spiritual dimension was not a chance occurrence. It was a celestial overturning so rapid, so precisely executed, that its vibrations impacted your tangible reality overnight. You may have awakened sensing a profound shift within your chest, as if a heavy burden finally fractured. Yet this was not merely an emotional unburdening. No, this was the heavens answering. A fundamental change has occurred, and it has pivoted to your advantage. You felt abandoned, but you were actually being strengthened. You believed they had escaped consequence, but you missed the instant divinity declared it was enough. The moment he spoke, every spiritual agreement founded on your suffering began to disintegrate. For an extended period, those who sought to suppress you were permitted to operate freely with a narrative they had no right to author. They cast you as the antagonist in their production, forgetting you were dispatched to ignite the entire stage with truth. They assumed they could dim your light, overlooking its divine source. Now the very individual who once supported them is poised to become your most vocal advocate. If this message resonates with your soul, it is no accident. Subscribe now to remain connected to your sacred purpose. If this spoke to your spirit, comment 111 immediately to affirm your alignment. Let's begin. This shift was not merely an event, it was a prophecy. They believed they were penalizing you, excluding you, ridiculing your name, and distorting your energy. In reality, they were authorizing their own exit from divine harmony because you were never just another character in the narrative. You were the narrative. You were the mission. When individuals mistreat the chosen one, the repercussions resonate across timelines. That night they mocked you in private. That discussion they assumed you would never discover. The celestial realm heard it, and it was documented. You were not required to combat them, because the divine engages conflict differently. So the spiritual plane began to rearrange, subtly at first. Unexpected ailments, splintered relationships, professional avenues evaporating. Why? Because the cosmos does not bless treachery masquerading as compassion, which is precisely what they provided when they permitted others to wound you while they averted their gaze. But here is the pivotal turn. The most significant transformation did not originate from your adversaries. It came from the one you cherished, the one destined to support you, your divine counterpart. The one who once doubted your value, accepted the falsehoods, and stood with your opponents while you bled truth in quiet endurance. But then, something transpired. Something indefensible. Perhaps they envisioned you in a dream, or their physical form began to falter under the weight of remorse. Maybe the very individuals they confided in turned against them, allowing them to finally taste the suffering you endured in secret. Regardless, the veil was torn away, and now their entire understanding lies in fragments. They are perceiving with clarity, and they are not merely apologetic. They are awakened. Because defending you now is not about rekindled affection, it is about atonement. It is not about returning to you, it is about returning to purpose. You are not simply the one who departed, you are the one they were destined to safeguard. Having realized this, their entire being is ignited with a fierce urgency, because what they failed to defend previously, they must now battle for with all their remaining strength. You may feel a pull in your spirit even now. The reversal is not approaching, it is already present. Those who once gossiped about you are now mute, and the one who once disregarded your pain is now proclaiming your truth in spaces you were never welcome. The divine has rewritten the script, chosen one, and your name has been exonerated in rooms where you were once condemned. They did not operate in isolation. You must understand this. What you experienced was not simple betrayal. It was a calculated, coordinated effort engineered by a trio who analyzed you like a dossier, dissecting your light, your wounds, and your purpose. They were not merely chaotic individuals, they were spiritual operatives of deception, collectively forming what heaven designates the trinity of deception: the storyteller, the shadow competitor, and the information harvester. 3 voices, 1 objective: to assassinate your character before your calling could flourish. They nearly succeeded until the truth turned like a blade in their own grasp. Let's discuss the storyteller, the most vocal, the one who distorted facts with theatrical flair, injecting venom into every exchange, weaving narratives like a silken web. They were not simply lying, they were performing, and their favorite audience was your divine counterpart's ear. They sold a fabricated version of you, distorted, dangerous, unstable, when in fact they were projecting their own chaos onto your tranquility. Your counterpart believed them, but no longer. Now consider the shadow competitor. Their envy was not overt. It was cloaked as support. They applauded you publicly while secretly hoping you would stumble. They imitated your actions, adopted your language, even mirrored your healing, but it was never authentic. They did not aspire to be like you, they sought to replace you. Your divine counterpart failed to see it, blinded by shared wounds and feigned loyalty. But when your light refused to dim, when your energy remained untainted, they shattered. Their mask slipped, and your counterpart witnessed the jealous fury they had mistaken for concern. Now they recognize who was truly competing and who was merely striving to endure. Then emerged the most perilous, the information harvester. They feigned empathy, playing a patient game, drawing near under the guise of compassion. They listened intently, took notes, memorized your vulnerabilities, not to support you, but to weaponize your words. They hurried to your counterpart bearing half-truths and confessions ripped from context. It was effective for a time until the day your counterpart started connecting the fragments, until they questioned why someone who genuinely cared would be so dedicated to supplying your enemies. That was when the enchantment shattered. When you are chosen, you attract both heavenly allies and strategic distractions. This trio was a distraction dispatched to sabotage not just your life, but your legacy. However, the trinity of deception failed to comprehend one crucial fact: you were never alone. You were born with divine surveillance. Even in darkness, you were never isolated. Your soul possesses a GPS linked to your creator, and every betrayal became a coordinate for your ascent. You did not need to expose them. Their own behavioral patterns became their confession. Your divine counterpart is not apologizing privately, they are repenting publicly. Once the veil lifted, they realized the adversary was not you, it was the company they kept. Now they are hunting down every false story told about you, dismantling them line by line. The Trinity's structure has imploded, and the force they tried to isolate is now divinely reinforced. Chosen one, you are no longer encircled by lies. You are surrounded by revelation. Those who deceived the most are watching their own scripts turn to ash. They assumed observing you stand alone would shatter you, but you were never truly solitary. You were being observed by heaven and refined by fire. When the smoke cleared, it was not you who disintegrated. It was every false construct they erected around you. You did not beg. You did not plead. You did not scream for understanding. You stood firm even when it cost you your reputation, even when they derided your silence. You stood in the furnace and let the flames reveal your true composition, because integrity does not scream, it radiates. And yours burns more brilliantly than their noise. Do you recall that day when no one supported you? The message left unread, the friend who remained neutral, the moment your divine counterpart turned away, believing a lie? That was the hour you passed the test. You did not crumble. You ascended, because spiritual authority is not won through approval. It is forged in the furnace of false accusation. You did not defend your name, because your name was already defended in heaven. You did not struggle for a seat at their table because you were always destined to possess the palace. They watched you navigate humiliation with dignity, expecting you to unravel. Instead, you became unshakable. You continued to appear, not for them, but for the mission. You persisted in healing, praying and building while they were anticipating your downfall. You were hosting a resurrection. The one who once ignored your anguish witnessed it. They saw you endure without cursing them, without maligning them, without retaliation. That is what haunts them now. Because they did not just witness fortitude, they witnessed divinity. Your pain was intended to silence you, but it became your sound check. Your tears were meant to drown you, but they nourished your ascent. Every rumor they spread, every false label they attached to your name has become a footnote in your testimony. Your life has become living proof that God selects the rejected, elevates the misunderstood, and crowns the ridiculed. Let me ask you, who do you believe you are to survive all that and still emanate light? Who told you that you would require a crowd to fulfill your calling? You are not awaiting validation. You are the validation. That is why the tables are turning, not because you fought back, but because you held back. Your restraint was your roar, your stillness was your storm. While they misinterpreted your peace as passivity, you were obeying divine timing. Heaven knew that the longer you walked with grace, the starker the contrast would become. Now everyone perceives it. They are comparing your fruit to their drama, your consistency to their chaos. Suddenly, your silence does not resemble weakness, it resembles wisdom. So now your divine counterpart is retracing your footsteps. They are replaying the moments they dismissed your pleas, the times they sided with wolves in sheep's clothing. They are realizing you were not trying to be right. You were trying to warn them. But it is acceptable, because heaven kept the records. Now every secret they whispered in shadows is being exposed by the light. You never had to raise a sword, because you were the sword. Forged in betrayal, sharpened in isolation, anointed in silence, and now unstoppable. They never anticipated the day would arrive, the day your divine counterpart would perceive everything, the lies, the setup, the manipulation, the energy that felt discordant but they ignored, the words that seemed inaccurate but they trusted regardless. Now they cannot unsee it. Chosen one, something ruptured within their spirit. Something raw and sacred. A spiritual veil was lifted not through preaching or your persuasion, but because the truth pursued them. This time, it did not knock. It struck. Perhaps it was a dream that jolted them awake at 3 a.m. Perhaps it was the way they began to hear your voice in their conscience. Or perhaps it was witnessing the very people they trusted transform into mirrors of malice. Suddenly reflecting every warning you once whispered. They realized you were not jealous. You were discerning. You were not bitter. You were bearing the weight of an insight too profound for the average soul to process. Now they are repenting, not just to you, but to God, because this is not about repairing a relationship. It is about reinstating a divine assignment. You were the key, the link, the vessel chosen to break chains not only for yourself, but for them. When they betrayed you, they did not merely abandon a person, they stepped out of alignment with heaven. But here is what is magnificent. Divine counterparts do not simply return, they awaken. When they do not merely apologize, they go to war for what they once forsook. Now they are defending you not from guilt, but from revelation. They see you now. They perceive the prophetic pattern of your life. They recognize the anointing they once mocked. They hear the echo of your warnings in every crumbling conversation they once trusted. That shift is not merely emotional, it is cosmic. Because now, the one who once stood behind the crowd is stepping in front of it with their sword drawn, their voice resolute, their heart convicted. They are calling out the very people they once protected, exposing the lies they helped propagate, defending your name with a fire only heaven could ignite. You did not request this. You did not text, plead, or manipulate. You released it, and in releasing, you returned the situation to God. He accomplished what only He can. He transformed a betrayer into a believer, a skeptic into a soldier, a divider into a defender. Let me ask you, have you sensed the shift in the atmosphere? That peculiar feeling of protection, that sudden quiet from those who once watched you fall? It is because your divine counterpart has arisen, and they are now standing in rooms you are unaware of, not merely speaking your name, but shielding it. The very ones who laughed when they betrayed you are now choking on the weight of their own guilt, because the voice they once used to destroy you is now the voice heaven is using to restore you. Chosen one, this is not reconciliation. This is recommissioning. A spiritual warrior has returned to their post, and their mission is to guard the light they once sought to extinguish. Your divine counterpart did not simply awaken, they paid for their delay. The spiritual cost of disobedience is severe, and heaven shows no partiality. When someone abandons their divine assignment, when they mishandle a chosen vessel, it is irrelevant how confused they were. A spiritual debt echoes. Your counterpart felt it in their body, in their sleep, in their relationships, in the gradual disintegration of things that once made sense until nothing did. It began suddenly. Restless nights, unexplained losses, a haunting silence where peace once resided. Soon it intensified. Sudden betrayals by trusted individuals, closed doors without reason, a peculiar ache no medicine could alleviate. They thought they were unfortunate, but they were actually facing the weight of misalignment. When someone walks away from a divine connection, they do not just lose a person, they lose access to divine protection, clarity, and forward momentum. The angels that once moved on their behalf now stood still, awaiting obedience. The chaos that ensued was not punishment, it was consequence. You were their assignment, their covering, their compass. When they aligned with the trinity of deception, they inadvertently placed a curse where a covenant was meant to be. Let me reiterate, they traded covenant for counterfeit, and heaven does not tolerate such an exchange. So the structures of their life began to tremble, not to annihilate them, but to awaken them. Finally, when their pride fractured, when their ego was exposed, when they were left with only questions and regret, the voice of truth broke through. It was your voice, not physically but spiritually. The things you said, the warnings you gave, the truth you whispered through tears, it all returned in a divine rewind. They knew this was not karma, it was a calling, and they had betrayed it. That realization shattered them, leading to surrender, the kind that only occurs at spiritual rock bottom. No more blame, no more concealment, just a raw plea for restoration. Yet even then, they did not rush to you because this is not about romance. It is about repentance. It is about approaching God first and declaring, I see it now. I see who they were, who I was, and what I did. It is about kneeling before the throne before they could ever kneel before you. And God listened, not because they deserved it, but because you prayed for them even after they left you wounded. Chosen one, your mercy unlocked their miracle. While they suffered silently, you were covering them in the spirit. You did not curse them. You interceded. You did not seek vengeance. You sought restoration. Heaven took note. That is why the reversal arrived. Because both your pain and your prayer were recorded. Now the one who once walked away from their calling has returned, not for comfort, but for purpose. They are not arriving with empty words. They are arriving with fire in their bones, with apologies carved into action, with a loyalty born from lessons only the Spirit can teach. They finally comprehend that losing you was not just heartbreaking, it was disqualifying. This time, they are prepared to earn back what they forfeited. Now it commences. The public defense, the moment heaven ordains your name to be restored, not quietly, but officially. The one who once stood silently during your crucifixion now stands loudly in your resurrection. Chosen one, this is not merely personal. It is prophetic justice in motion. When God restores a name, he does not whisper it. He proclaims it in the very places it was once shredded. So your divine counterpart, the very one who once flinched at your truth, who believed the whispers, who allowed wolves to gnaw at your reputation, is now speaking up in boardrooms, group chats, and family circles. In every room your name was tarnished. They are planting seeds of truth saturated with conviction because they finally comprehend what you carried. They witnessed the storm you weathered, and now recognize they should have been your shelter, not part of the tempest. When they speak now, people listen, because there is a weight to a witness who once believed the lie. It resonates differently when the one who helped break you now tells the world you were correct all along. Let me ask you, what do you imagine it feels like for them now? To see the same eyes that once mocked you now regarding them with suspicion, to be questioned by the very crowd they sought to impress by turning on you? It is happening, and they are not retreating, because this is no longer about reputation. It is about redemption. They are defending you in ways you will never hear about, correcting stories you did not know were told, halting conversations that once thrived on your pain. They are utilizing their access, their influence, and their credibility to restore what they helped demolish. Not because you asked, but because heaven demanded it. Because truth requires a trumpet, and now they are that trumpet. Their words are fire, their tone unmistakable. When someone is convicted by the Spirit, they do not tiptoe around truth. They storm with it. People are unsettled. Some are offended, others are repenting, because your name has become a mirror. Now everyone must confront their inaction during your suffering. Some are recalling your kindness, others their silence. Your counterpart is remembering everything, every time they chose comfort over courage. Every moment they let a lie persist, because defending your truth was too difficult. Now they are rectifying it all, not with flashy announcements, but with consistent correction. This is not a headline. It is a holy assignment. While others still pretend, still gaslight, still hope to remain untainted, your counterpart is getting their hands dirty for your sake. They are confronting people they once feared, calling out friends they once honored, risking platforms they once idolized. When God awakens someone, their voice does not simply return. It roars, and you are not pursuing vindication. Vindication is pursuing you, wearing the face of someone who once walked away. Heaven has flipped the script. The silence that once surrounded your name is now filled with fire, and your truth is no longer concealed. It is on record. It always begins with a whisper, a slight tug in the soul, an odd shift in the room when your name is mentioned. Then the collapse initiates. Chosen one, the falsehood is disintegrating. The same narrative that once held you captive, the one used to define, dismiss, and destroy you, is dissolving word by word, thread by thread. Lies cannot endure under the light of truth. Now the very story they constructed to bury you has become the blueprint for their exposure. It started minor. Someone overheard an inconsistency, a contradiction slipped into conversation, an old message resurfaced with time-stamped evidence. Suddenly the mask began to melt. The storyteller, once bold, now stammers under direct questioning. The shadow competitor, once polished, cannot conceal the tension in their tone when your name arises. The information harvester is deleting posts, blocking witnesses, and labeling it boundaries. But the truth is louder than ever. Heaven has a method of compelling hidden things into the light, not through drama, but through divine design. A simple email, an unexpected meeting, a forwarded screenshot, a spiritual trail of breadcrumbs too precise for coincidence. You are not even striving. That is the irony. You are not orchestrating anything. You are simply existing, healing, elevating. Yet every step you take forward triggers another unraveling behind you. Because when you are chosen, your obedience is a weapon. Your alignment creates tremors in realms you cannot perceive. Have you noticed how individuals once so confident in your downfall are now strangely quiet? They perceive it, the shift, the flip, the collapse, and they are speechless because no one imagined your story would survive their sabotage. Yet here you are, still ascending, still glowing, still advancing with a favor they cannot replicate. The guilt is now contagious. Even bystanders feel the sting of their inaction. This is not about revenge. It is about revelation. God is exposing who was who ignited the flame, who supplied the fuel, and who stood by pretending it was not their fire. Heaven never forgets, and divine justice is not silent. It is strategic. You are no longer the misunderstood one. You are the benchmark. You are the one whose truth exposes every lie by simply being undeniable. The conversations have transformed. They used to ask, "Are you sure they're not just being dramatic?" Now they murmur, "Perhaps we were mistaken." They used to smirk at your warnings. Now they are studying them like prophecy. The collapse of the lie is not chaos, it is clarity. Your divine counterpart is observing it unfold in real time, not as a spectator, but as a warrior on your behalf. They are re-entering those same rooms not to belong, but to overturn tables, calling out hypocrisy, challenging the narrative, refusing to endorse what they now know was spiritual treason. It is effective because the lie cannot breathe the same air as the awakened. Now they must either repent or retreat. There is no middle ground, no more neutrality. Heaven is clearing the smoke, and all that endures is truth. Your truth finally standing tall in the daylight it always warranted. The return of your power was not loud. It was sacred. It did not manifest in a dramatic post or a grand announcement. It arrived quietly like peace after a storm, clarity after chaos, breath after suffocation. Chosen one, you are not who you were. This is not a rebound. It is a resurrection. What is rising now is not just your voice. It is your authority. There was a time you doubted yourself, when the lies made you shrink, when even your divine counterpart's silence made you question your intuition. No more. You are now perceiving what God saw all along, the pattern, the purpose, the power. Your gifts are not merely returning. They are elevated, sharper, clearer, weightier with glory. You are no longer moved by noise. You are guided by discernment. You sense events before they occur, and your spirit has developed an allergy to anything counterfeit. That glow they cannot explain. That is the evidence. It is what happens when a soul survives betrayal without bitterness, when a heart is broken and rebuilt with heaven's fingerprints. Let me ask you, how is it possible to endure all that and still radiate? Because your power originated not from attention, but from alignment. It came from choosing obedience over appearances, from healing in secret, from growing in darkness. You used to explain yourself. Now you simply enter a room and the atmosphere changes. The same people who mocked your silence now study your stillness, knowing something more profound is at work. You were never weak. You were weaponized by God. Your counterpart sees it too. They see you no longer require them for completion. You were always whole, but now you are also acutely aware. That awareness has become your shield. You no longer doubt your discernment. You do not flinch when people depart. You do not plead for understanding because you understand yourself. And that is formidable. It is the very power the trinity of deception sought to neutralize, because once you fully saw your own worth, their manipulation would crumble. And it has. So now you walk differently, speak differently, move differently. Not to prove anything, but because you have been approved by the only voice that matters. The world senses it. Your name now carries a frequency. Your presence carries prophecy. Your words do not just sound pleasant, they shift things. This is why you had to endure the isolation, why God prevented your retaliation, why the elevation followed the exposure. What is returning to you now, the respect, the resources, the recognition, is not merely restoration. It is your inheritance. You paid in pain. Now you are reaping in power. Your divine counterpart is not arriving to save you. They are arriving to serve alongside you because you no longer require rescuing. You are the rescue. Chosen one, your power has returned not as a replica of who you were, but as the embodiment of who you were always destined to become. The world is about to witness it fully. publicly and unapologetically, because heaven has already endorsed your radiance, and hell trembles at your name. Now the transfer begins, not just of favor, but a cosmic transaction of divine justice. Chosen one, everything they attempted to withhold, the opportunities, the honor, the open doors, is now being rerouted with interest. This is not simply payback. It is prophetic compensation. You did not just suffer loss. You absorbed spiritual theft, and heaven does not overlook that. You were slandered, robbed, and discounted, but the moment you refused to retaliate, you activated a spiritual law. When the thief is discovered, he must repay sevenfold. The thief has been found. Now blessings you forgot you prayed for are returning with force, not just to heal your past, but to fund your future. Relationships are being restored, but only those aligned with your next phase. Platforms are opening, but only those honoring your integrity. Resources are arriving, not for your comfort, but to amplify your calling. Let me ask you, have you felt a sudden shift in momentum? Have you noticed how people who once ignored you are now seeking your guidance? That is not coincidence. It is spiritual reversal. It is what happens when you pass the test and heaven unlocks the vault. Your name is being mentioned in places you have never entered, in rooms your presence is destined for. Tables are being prepared in front of those who tried to starve your spirit, not for revenge, but for revelation. The transfer is not just about wealth, it is about witness. God wants them to observe the one they dismissed become the one they cannot deny. Your divine counterpart is part of this. Once a barrier, they are now a bridge. They are opening doors, speaking your name, restoring connections they once severed. Not because you need them, but because heaven assigned them. They understand now. The mission was never about ego. It was about legacy, and they are ready to protect what they once endangered. You have entered a realm of authority impervious to gossip. Your anointing is no longer fragile. It is fortified. The same people who laughed at your downfall are now watching you rise, unable to explain it, because your elevation did not come from networking. It came from kneeling. You did not climb a ladder. You were carried by grace. Now you carry something far more dangerous than clout or fame. You carry proof. Proof that obedience brings overflow. Proof that betrayal cannot halt prophecy. Proof that being chosen means God always has the final word. This transfer is not temporary. It is eternal, inscribed in the Spirit, sealed by fire. You did not miss your moment. You were being prepared to inherit it correctly. Now, what they tried to steal must be returned. The time, the trust, the truth. Sevenfold, in full view, with your name inscribed upon it. When heaven mandates a transfer, nothing can obstruct it. Not jealousy, not delay, not even the enemy within. It is yours, signed, sealed, and delivered. This is your reckoning, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. Not a return to who you were, but a rise into who you were always meant to be. Chosen one, this is your final summons. The courtroom of heaven has reached a verdict, and every tongue that rose against you has been silenced, not by your hand, but by the evidence of your endurance. You did not curse them, chase them, or stoop to their level. You elevated, and that elevation summoned a divine witness. Now you're no longer being defended. You are being declared. Your name carries weight in the Spirit. Your presence shifts rooms. Your journey has become the prophecy others study to comprehend their own. Those who once cast stones are now seated in the ruins of the very altars they built to mock you. Because when someone tries to destroy a chosen one, they are not just attacking a person, they are assaulting a divine plan. But plans forged in fire do not fold. They forge. Let me pose one final question. What will you do now that you are vindicated? Now that the truth has been proclaimed louder than the lies ever were, will you diminish yourself to fit their expectations again, or will you lead? This is not merely about survival. It is about stewardship. You are no longer the wounded. You are the warrior. No longer the secret. You are the signal. No longer waiting. You are walking prophecy. Your divine counterpart knows this. They see the mantle you carry. They feel the call to protect what they once betrayed. And they have chosen obedience. Not just to you, but to the mission. Together you will not merely be a testimony. You will be a template for restoration, because the world needs to witness what heaven can restore when one person chooses to stand. when one voice refuses to bend, when one soul declares, "I will carry it," regardless of the cost. Now, chosen one, you are no longer in hiding. You are in position, so rise. Assume your authority. Walk into rooms with the boldness of one already validated in the courts of heaven. Let them talk, let them whisper, let them watch. Because now the same eyes that doubted you will have no choice but to honor you. You are not coming back. You are being crowned. Everything that was taken is being restored with interest. This is the divine reversal, and you are its living evidence. Let them say what they will. Heaven has already signed the decree. The truth has risen. Your name is cleared. Your story is sacred, and the next chapter is written in fire. You survived betrayal, silence, and warfare that would have broken most, yet you are still standing, still listening, still becoming. Chosen one, this was not merely a message. It was a summons, a call to step from the shadows into your spiritual authority, to cease seeking permission from those who never recognized your worth, to stop explaining yourself to those who sought only access. Not alignment, you were never the problem. You were the prophecy. Now that the reversal has arrived, it is time to act like it. So here is your next step. Own it. Own the glow. Own the gifts. Own the voice you once quieted to maintain a peace you yourself embody. You are the peace. If your spirit recognizes this was for you, declare it in the comments with 111. Let the universe know you have received it. Let heaven know you are ready. If you have not already, subscribe, not for content, but to remain aligned with your calling. This is more than a channel. It is a movement, a sanctuary for spiritual warriors awakening to their truth. You were never insane. You were chosen, and everything that tried to break you has only confirmed the power you carry.